going to try and stay on track, make sense, not get upset, and not go on all these little digressions, because this needs to be 30 minutes. I could talk for hours just going down all the nitty-gritty on both of the cases that I want to discuss now. But, you know, I guess if I was doing these big lives, I could just sit here and just talk it all through and just keep going, right? But when you're using your phone, you're not editing, you're using your phone just to record and then upload. I mean, uploading becomes a real issue, and, you know, 30 minutes is about capacity. But it's good because maybe it keeps me in check. Yeah. But I want to talk about a few aspects of two cases. And it's going to be tricky because I don't want to get tied up in knots because I start talking about things that I really don't want to just say. There's always things that I'm not saying, you know, things that I think, connections that I make, attitudes that I have, assessments that I've made, judgments that I've made, ideas that I had. I mean, there's always things that have to be held in reserve. They just do for various reasons. But and I don't know what I'm going to say here. I don't know how to word things. That's my problem. I don't know how to word things. But I'm just noticing, you know, especially, you know, through this process of true criming, you know, and being a viewer and also being, I guess, a commentator, a viewer who uploads, you know, over the years, you know, you come to these realizations, and you come to realizations that human beings are being groomed out of the ability to use their instinct, out of the ability to trust their instinct and to act, to take down danger in good time. And what happens is danger and filth and let your mind run wild about all the things that are allowed to stay in society, nearly ruling society, elevated in society, because they are granted life and access and freedom to do what they want and to fulfill some pretty heinous fantasies. And then when it's all happened and the devastating denouements are out in the general public and we're all horrified and shocked, well, then it kicks in again. So not only are victims allowed to be victimized because, I don't know, we're lacking in balls, we don't trust our instinct, we just want to give the benefit of the doubt, we want to be a good Christian, we want to, live and let live, or we don't want to get involved, or, I wouldn't like to judge. And then after the facts of devastating events, it kicks in again. I don't know, you can't judge because of this and because of that. No, I'm such a generous, empathetic person, and I'm not going to kick someone when they're down. I'm not going to pick on the victims. They are victims too. Their daughter is missing, their father is missing, you know, whatever it is. And we can see and hear what's clearly in front of our face, okay? Quite often, there's not that doubt. Now, sometimes we might have to reserve judgment it doesn't stop people from throwing judgment out there and doing exactly the same things, either glorifying someone, enabling someone, making excuses, not believing they're guilty, etc., or, jumping to conclusions that they are guilty, even though they don't have fact. Okay. But, in those situations, or in the situations like we have, for example, with Summer Wells' disappearance, where we've got Don Wells in all his fucking decrepit glory in front of you. He walks, he talks. People don't want to make a decision about him being really fucking shady. Right? Unbelievable. And how have we got into this? This has taken years of training, obviously. I mean, some people should just have certificates in the fact that they've managed to lose every animal instinct that they were given at birth through millennia of evolvement. Or however you want to look at that, as God's gift to the human beings, as animals, as part of the animal kingdom. You've got certain gifts. We have highly developed gifts, and somehow we're not using them. People aren't stepping in. What? Due to some sort of, due to family loyalty, due to just self-doubt, due to self-preservation, complicity. What? I mean, what is going on? Law enforcement as well. Now, don't you just feel it in your waters that something is dreadfully wrong here? All over the world. So Summer Wells, for instance, this is a little 5-year-old girl whose family home is in a place called Ben Hill Road in Tennessee, in an area of Tennessee where there are several border crossings, and you've got a town called Rogersville to the west, and they actually come in under the umbrella of the Rogersville jurisdiction, and you've got Kingsport to the east, probably named a port, Kingsport, because it's on the waterway. It's on the waterway where little Summer went with Candii, plural of Candus, and a person, let's just call him Hun, we're told on June the 15th. And Daddy Don Wells would have headed out on June the 15th, if this is to be believed, when he's driving on his way to Jonesboro, a little town. So you've got half an hour to Rogersville one way, you've got half an hour to Jonesport another, and Kingsport. And Jonesboro is a half hour sort of southeast of the town. And you'd head out on the little road that goes into Kingsport. And it's not very far, maybe, to make meetups and things like that. Who knows who's driving around and where and when, because we don't have a timeline. TBI certainly hasn't given us a timeline, and we haven't been able to nail anything down. We don't have a timeline for Candus Wells, the mother. We don't have a timeline for Don Wells, the father. We don't have a timeline for Grandmother Wells, Candus Senior. So we really don't know much. Perhaps some sleuths, some investigators are going to come up with the pharmaceutical prescription or something. I don't know if they can do that. Apparently the Candii went to Walgreens which is just west over the river from the little swimming spot. You know, the video that we're told was made on June the 15th at the stables in a little inlet area of a river where there's a little park, and it's a place called the Stables. At this area, supposedly law enforcement would have searched there too, and it's poo-pooed to think that they didn't. It's in another jurisdiction, but however, we're told that there's lots of law enforcement agencies from all around coming in to work so hard here to find this little girl. Maybe it's just in Australia and New Zealand, but when we have people doing the grid searching, the line searches for missing people or for evidence, what the searchers do is procedure so that it is clearly marked off quickly, visually, by searchers that an area has been screened or done. You know, they put markings in the trees. It's just usually just a little bit of toilet paper, something like that. There's areas staked out. There's nothing at the river, at this area, to show that law enforcement have been there. But I'm not saying they haven't, because we saw an image of a diver. I don't know if it looked like it was at this area of the river, but let's trust that it is. But there was no sign of it. But what there were some twisted tea cans and a rubbish bin, black bag, you know, filled with rubbish and twisted tea cans. Now, sure, this was filmed by a local that said, I recognize the area that's shown in the video that Candus Wells posted at about 6 o'clock in the evening. The time zones could be funny here. It could be 4 o'clock, it could be 8 o'clock, but it was a 6:09, something like that. And sure, he might have planted them there, or someone could have taken them there. But if they were there, it certainly looks like Hun bends down in exactly the spot where the bag was. Now, maybe the local could have thought, I know that spot. He first filmed, though, going in at night and found a few things. Had he already planted them? I don't know. And then he was told by his viewers, go back. Anyway, I don't want to digress too much. But what I'm saying is, well, if this is true, so maybe it's not true, okay? Maybe it's not true that Candii and Summer and Hun were at this particular spot, and that it's not their rubbish, and that Candus wasn't supplying Hun with alcohol, because surely the area would look like it's searched, number one, and surely those things, the cans, would have been collected as some type of evidence, okay? But does it give you an uneasy feeling to know, you know, there's people swarming all over the fields, the woods, you know, they don't want people out looking, just search your own yards, you know, basically don't come and look at what we're doing, you know, because it's dangerous. But that just seems ludicrous, actually. I mean, even Don Wells himself has told us Summer ain't there. She's far away. You know, in the red Tahoma, this feels like bullshit too, doesn't it? Just feels like a distraction. Now let's keep them busy looking for the red truck. I mean, what could be more common? Tiff on Savgirl last night, we just did a little Google Earth drive around the area. It's a really beautiful area, actually. When you're not on that sort of central road that Ben Hill roads off, when you're on sort of the two more main highways, north and south of it and everything, you know, the properties are well kept and worked, and it's very beautiful, and there's historic buildings everywhere, old barns and converted homes and houses with trees growing through them, and several red trucks. I mean, red trucks, most common vehicle probably in this area. It just sounds like bullshit if you ask me, but who's asking me, and who would believe what I've got to say anyway, you know? What have my spidey said? How dare I? How dare I question? I mean, when the leader of the TBI has a surname called Earhart, how could I possibly question the search for a missing girl, Summer Wells, Summer Moon, who disappeared on the summer solstice? So I'm going to link a video down below by a local woman in the town. She's from Kingsport. It's very interesting. A few unexplainable things there, but I mean, probably quite explainable. And whichever way you look at that. So why don't we have, why are so, you know, I know we don't want to get it wrong. I know we don't want to get it wrong, but my skin crawls when I look at Don, and when I have such a strong reaction to him, such a negative reaction. It's like I can just sense the sickness, and he's clearly, you know, I don't know what problems Candus has got herself in terms of what she does to her children or doesn't protect them from. But, you know, we can clearly see a damaged woman there, an abused woman. This is a domestic violence household, isn't it? Who knows what's going on with all of the children? But just an opinion. Summer was not safe in that household at all, neither parent, and not from grandmother. I mean, you know, what the fuck does Candii mean? Give us some candy. So we have nothing, okay? We have nothing. We don't have any fact, okay? So we can't extrapolate anything. We don't know. We don't know if this girl has been missing for a little while. Don't know when she last was seen at church, desperately trying to get other adults to take her away. She'd gladly go home with someone. She'd probably gladly go anywhere with anyone, wouldn't she? So I don't know if there's been a dreadful accident and they just can't have her body examined, or if she was sold. You know, imagine if there'd been worse things that happened in that household, and would it always be Rogersville that respond? I wonder, would it be Kingsport? I don't know. Bargaining with Don? I don't know. No, surely not. I don't know what I'm saying. All I'm feeling is it doesn't feel right. The whole situation doesn't feel right. The investigation doesn't feel right. Sure, I know you've seen all the press conferences and so many, you know, nice things said and people rallying round. But doesn't it seem like they're really, what they're doing? I don't know. I hope I'm wrong. I hope they make an arrest soon. Because don't you feel like it's just another little girl just disappeared off the face of the planet? You know, and then, so listening to Hidden True Crime, so they're fabulous. That's Dr. John and Lauren Matthias, a journalist and a clinical psychiatrist or psychologist. And so had Laurie, the retired lawyer, and Lauren on today, and who knows who was in chat, but they say that they are Summer, calling themselves Summer Nouvelle, you know, new Summer. So this is Summer Shiftlet. And Summer just, you know, why is everyone looking for this sympathy? Summer's not a victim. Well, you know, I guess her family is suffering from, we can't see the grieving for Tylee and JJ, but, I guess are suffering from the spotlight. All we really want to hear, Summer Shiflett, is, wow, I am so sorry that I turned a blind eye, that I enabled my sister to kill. I enabled my sister to kill. I really am a dick. I really am a dick because I just couldn't make the right choices, you see. How can I explain away? I can't really tell you if it's because I believe in Laurie, or if I believed her because it's easier for the family, because we suffer at the hands of the narcissist, or we just really, I just loved the drama. I mean, it's part of our family value system to enable Laurie to torture her husband. So we were just continuing as per usual, nothing unusual, really just not paying attention, lying. You lied. Summy and Mummy, you lied. You fat liars. You lied about the call with JJ. You can't blame it on producers, okay? It's not the producers decided this. You let people either believe that this last call must have been it, or you have let lawyers state that, because it's a safe one, right? It's a safe one for you to say, well, that must have been it. Because you can deny this till you're blue in the face. People have to just, even if they don't believe you, they have to just let it go, because you can't prove that, oh, you knew on the October 1st that you weren't talking to JJ. You can just say you didn't have a very good memory. If that's when you had a call, then that's when you must have spoken to them. But I think, when you last spoke to family and you didn't get to speak to a grandson. I doubt he's probably not your beloved grandson. Yeah. I mean, you knew you couldn't speak to Tylee. Couldn't speak to Tylee. No, you wouldn't have spoken to her for a long time. No, you knew it wasn't Tylee. You couldn't say there. So let's just say that you'd spoken to JJ. And how convenient, just days after the magic podcast, Bubble, Toil and Trouble, the strange meeting in Rexburg when little JJ went missing, right? Just a couple of days after that. It's more likely you would have been speaking to Laurie, who would have been in a highly manic, agitated, or, proselytizing attitude, state, Can you only imagine, right? You can only imagine how Laurie would have been on the 1st of October 2019 if she's talking to her parents. And one of the longest phone calls. What was said? Did she tell you that phase was completed? How did she talk you out of that one? You just that disconnected, or you just so easily manipulated by your own sister? Or, is this the dumbing down of the instincts that seems to be happening as epidemic across the world, where people just seem to be turning into morons with no instinct, with no desire to act, to do the right thing. It just, so you've got the Kingsport. Okay, it's out of jurisdiction, but, seems that any maybe swap over in cars might have happened near Kingsport, if this is what's happened to Summer, you know, she's been handed over to someone or abducted from the lake, or something did happen at the lake, but we've got no sign of searching. And the video I link says there's no sign of Summer being missing at all, according to Kingsport Police. And it's just very odd. Just in the same way, Chandler Police want to send Laurie Cox to celebrate, believe, inspire. Wow, it is nearly a year to the date when I first talked about Community Bridges, Inc. Dr. William Adams Rappaport has moved on, and indeed the Tucson office, where I was assured by Community Bridges the testing, any influx, any intake, any interviewing would have taken place. Guess what? Not for psychiatric evaluations, but, you know, no, because this is an addiction center. This is what they do. They treat mental health, addiction. You know, they get money from insurance and from, you know, the government. They're a government-funded organisation run by the LDS. It's LDS, and they are not the Arizona State Hospital. No. Why would you send someone to the Arizona State Hospital with their psychiatric unit, with qualified people who are qualified to conduct testing, psychiatric evaluations? They would have requested a written request for a psychiatric evaluation, and would have been asking about certain things, and it probably would have had on it how Laurie thought Charles was Ned Schneider and that she was a translated being, etc., etc., etc. But no, let's just send her down to a rehab center where maybe a nurse, because there's lots of nurses there, maybe counselors. You know, when you go into AOD counseling, it's because you must have a history with alcohol and other drug dependency to do so. That's one of the prerogatives, one of the necessities. And the only person that might have had the right type of qualifications, because other than, say, passing over some paper and having a self-reporting form filled out, was, you know, Dr. William J. Adamus Rappaport. Look at his photo. What a scary dude. Now, who knows what this dude is? He's not a psychiatry doctor. He's not a psychologist. I mean, he does molecular and cellular medicine, if you are to believe. So, you know, looking at disease and things. Or he's involved now. He's gone from Community Bridges, and I think he's at... He puts different addresses for different things, but it's for La Frontera, you know, the front, La Frontera, using the premises for conducting, you know, the ACT, not ACT in the normal way you might think of in treatment, but he likes to use these terms. They all like to use these terms that could mean something in the mental health field, but it's just an acronym for something else, right? But they do suicide prevention and things. ACT on addiction. Yeah, ACT on addiction as well. So, you know, he likes to specify under one of his listings that he prescribes for, you know, anxiety, ADHD, and back pain. He's basically telling the bored housewives of Arizona, come in and get your pain meds, your uppers and your downers, because I'm your man. So who knows what this motherfucker is, right? But he's been around for a long time. He's got his little fingers in pies. Mesa closed, the office where Laurie was sent to go has closed down. He left, and he's now getting funding for prescribing other medications to people with drug addictions at other clinics. And Community Bridges is still, you know, waffling on there. Well, I'm waffling on. It's still going on there, helping people overcome addiction. in whatever way that they are doing it. So, with counseling and treatment and a series of whatever, okay? They are not qualified. What the fuck is Chandler Police doing, sending Laurie Cox to such an establishment when the law states she should have been sent to the ASH. They have the unit, they have the assessors, they have the beds where someone can stay the 72 hours or whatever it is. This didn't happen. And indeed they tried to get it to even go there. So what sort of relationship would they have with Community Bridges? Let's face it, I mean, it's not like the cops have access to highly trained psychiatrists just to send every Laurie, Dick and Harry to for assessments, right? Who's going to pay for it? These people don't go through decades of training and all of this just to do things for free. Or the fact of the matter is they're not available. The wait lists, right? Okay, you were waiting a long time. It's hundreds or thousands of dollars for treatment or to be seen, assessed, etc. It doesn't happen. So Community Bridges puts up their little hand and says, we'll have some of that funding, and they let it be known. And maybe because people come out of prison, right? People come out of prison and they've got a drug addiction because there's no drugs in prison, so there's no treatment in prison, and they come out and they've still got a drug addiction, and they might have hepatitis and whatever, but they've got to then go as part of their parole for drug counselling. Where? Well, it's easy. The parole and probation can send them off somewhere like Community Bridges. Send them off. It's so easy. Let them monitor it, and Community Bridges is happy. They've got the bored housewives getting their uppers and downers, and they're trying to save families, put families back together. It's probably a lot of it it's all great, I'm sure. And then, you've got the police that are just used to sending people off. Community Bridges never should accept Laurie Cox in as just this person to do this assessment on. It's not their place. It's not what they're set up to do. It's not what they're funded to do. They weren't at the time, and they're not now. The psychiatric assessments and things that they might talk about on their sites are all to do with the mental health of the person suffering with the drug addiction, the alcohol abuse, and the mental health and fuckery that goes along with all of that. And I've often thought, well, she didn't even go, and, she didn't see anyone. But it seems anyway, from what Laurie, the lawyer on Hidden True Crime, said, that,